Hello, and welcome to the latest installment of KRAD COVID Readings. I'm Keith R.A. DeCandido, here to read my writings to entertain the heck out of you. Back in 1996, Simon & Schuster first started doing crossovers. They had never, prior to 96, they had never crossed over any of their Star Trek novels with any of their other Star Trek novels. By 96, there were 4 different shows at that point. There was the original series, The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. And in 96, they decided to do a story that would encompass all 4 shows. It was called Invasion, and involved a race called the Furies, which menaced first Kirk back in the 23rd century, and then both Picard's Enterprise, Sisko on Deep Space Nine, and Janeway in the Delta Quadrant on Voyager all had to deal with the Furies as well. This was a huge hit, and it prompted them to keep doing crossovers as time went on. In 1997, they took another chance, and in this case debuted New Frontier, which was written almost entirely by Peter David, which focused on a new crew, not any of the 4 at the time TV show crews. This was also very radical and also a really big hit. The first 4 New Frontier books, which came out in the summer of 1997, sold phenomenally well. And the New Frontier series continued for many years after that. In 2000, instead of another crossover, they'd done Invasion, they had done Day of Honor, which was actually then used on Voyager for the episode of the same name. One of those rare instances where the fiction actually influenced the TV show. The Captain's Table in 1998, and so on. In 2000, 99 was the Double Helix crossover. And then in 2000, rather than a crossover, they did something called New Earth, which was a 6-part series that was just the original series, but it took place after the motion picture. Involved a mission that the Enterprise went on to help set up a remote colony and all the problems they dealt with. It was meant to kick off a new prose-only series like New Frontier, but for the 23rd century, called Challenger, which is going to be written by Diane Carey. To that end, one of the things that had happened starting in 98 with the Captain's Table crossover was New Frontier was folded into crossover event as well. And then in 2001, not only was New Frontier brought in, but so was Challenger. The crossover, this will all be relevant in a second. I'm just setting the stage here. In 2001, the crossover was called Gateways. In the Next Generation episode, Contagion, it established that there was an ancient civilization called the Iconians who had gateways that could take them instantly from one place to another. They were seen again in the Deep Space Nine episode, To the Death. In the original series episode, That Which Survives, the Enterprise was suddenly, instantaneously sent several thousand light years away. As conceived by Bob Greenberger and John Ordover, the Gateways crossover posited that what happened in That Which Survives was also an Iconian gateway. It was a space-based gateway as opposed to a land-based one that we'd seen in the other 2 episodes, that could instantaneously transport someone. What happened in the crossover was gateways all opened instantaneously at once, and various people had to deal with it, including that was in the 23rd century. For the 24th century, rather. In the 23rd century, there was a Kirk-based follow-up to That Which Survives, in which they investigate the planet a little more thoroughly. And there was also a story involving Challenger that dealt with the gateways. And then for the 23rd century, everything all happened at once, in which all these gateways suddenly open up. It involved The Next Generation, which was written by Robert Greenberger, who also is the one who conceived the series with John Ordover, the editor at the time. There was a Deep Space Nine story, which I wrote. Christy Golden did a Voyager story. Peter David did a New Frontier story. And there was also the original series, which was written by Susan Wright, and then Diane Carey did the Challenger one. There were 7 books altogether, and I know I only listed 6 series. One of the things that one of the conceits of the series was that at one point in the book, toward the end of the book, or the end of the story, the captain, or at the end of the story, the captain character, Kirk, Keller for the Challenger series, Picard, Kira, Calhoun and Shelby from New Frontier, and Janeway, would step through a gateway not knowing what lay beyond. The final book was called What Lay Beyond, and featured all those captains' adventures on the other side of the gateway. In my case, I did, for Deep Space Nine, I told a complete story in the novel Demons of Air and Darkness, but it ended with Kira having to step through a gateway and then going on a journey of her own on the other side. Others had different interpretations of how to deal with that. It was very bizarre crossover. But we also, in 2000, started the Starfleet Corps of Engineers series, which I've been reading to you all year. And I wanted to have that be involved in the crossover as well. So I wrote Here There Be Monsters, which was dealing with the aftermath, because that's what the Corps of Engineers do. They deal with, they clean up after everybody's mess. So I decided to do my little contribution to the Gateways crossover. Well, I'd already done the DS9 one, but my additional contribution to the Gateways crossover, which was called Here There Be Monsters. And so that's what I'm going to be reading to you in this wonderful month of May. You will notice the shirt I'm wearing. This is the cover for the German edition of Here There Be Monsters, which CrossCult, the German publisher, decided to translate the title to Achtung, Monster, which I just love. I think everything should be called Achtung, Monster. I think it's a great title. I love that title, and that's what this is also called. So anyway, as for the Corps of Engineers, we're only 2 stories away from the last one. What's been going on there? The Invincible was the 8th installment, which I just finished last week. The 9th installment was The Riddled Post by Aaron Rosenberg, which dealt with various things, and then it ended with actually the exact line was that we've got a new assignment, Gold said, and it's going to be a doozy. That doozy was actually dealing with the gateways. Anyway, without further ado, here is Achtung, Monster, or as we say in English, Here There Be Monsters, Chapter 1. One other thing. I actually read Chapter 1 earlier in KRAD COVID readings as an excerpt, just because I love that particular chapter, so I apologize for the repetition. However, this week you will also get Chapter 2. So there. Anyway, Chapter 1. I can't find anything wrong with this thing, Duff, Fabian Stevens said from under 12 tons of machinery. There's got to be something wrong, Lieutenant Commander Kieran Duffy said as he peered at his tricorder. I mean, it's not working. I know that, but everything here is checking out. Except for the whole not working thing, Kieran added dolefully. Fabian climbed out from under the hatchway that had given him access to many of the critical systems in the Tellarite generator. Yeah, except for that. He wiped the sweat off his brow. I don't know. We've been running around like crazy people for days. And we spent most of the last day repairing this monstrosity. I don't think I'd know a fried EPS conduit if I saw it at this point. Kieran smiled. What? You don't like dashing around half the galaxy, mapping gateways and fixing blown-out power systems? Over the course of a month? Sure. Over 4 days? Not so much. The captain wasn't kidding when he said this was going to be a doozy. Holding up his tricorder, Kieran said, well, in any case, these things don't get exhausted, and it says that everything appears to be functioning normally too. Gomez to Duffy. Grinning, Kieran tapped his comm badge. Duffy here. You're back, Sonny. We'll be flying the Archimedes into orbit of Tellar within 5 minutes. So the comm relay is all fixed. Yep. Patty did most of the work by crawling around the thing's outer hull and replacing the burned-out relays. What I'm wondering is where the Da Vinci is? Kieran chuckled. Was wondering when you were going to ask. They found a derelict ship that apparently fell through the same gateway that blew out the comm relay you were fixing. The captain's towing it to Starbase 12. They should be back. He checked his chronometer. Actually, any minute now. Didn't realize how late it had gotten. How are you and Fabian coming with the generator? It's, coming. Still haven't figured out what's wrong yet, have you? Kieran could hear her smile. You know me too damn well, you know that? He said with mock indignation. Do you want a hand, or would you two rather prove your manhood by fixing it yourselves without any help from us? Oh ho, a challenge! Fine, we'll have it fixed before the Da Vinci gets back. Really? Kieran could hear the dubious note in Sonia's voice. So apparently could Fabian, given the guffaw he was trying to suppress. Do you doubt me, madam? No, just wondering if you're willing to put your money where your foot is. Tell you what, when we have that overhaul at Starbase 96 next month, the winner picks where we have dinner. You're on, Duff. We'll be in orbit if you need us. Gomez out. Fabian frowned. She called you Duff. Thought that was my nickname for you. You take it up with her. Holding up his hands, Fabian said, No, thanks. I don't mess around with officers. It was Kieran's turn to frown. Fabe, I'm an officer. Fabian snapped his fingers. Dang, keep forgetting that. He removed one of the panels from the generator. I gotta say, I was really worried there for a while. Gateways opening up all over the galaxy, fights breaking out, planets in danger. It was a major mess. I wasn't worried. Shooting Kieran a look, Fabian said. You weren't. Nope, Kieran said as he opened up another panel. They put Picard in charge. Yeah, so? As soon as I heard that, I knew everything would be fine. You're kidding. Fabian was looking at Kieran like he had two heads. How? Kieran opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, and closed it again. Finally, he said, You've never served with Picard, have you? No. Then you won't get it. He's just got this ineffable Picardity. When he's in charge, you just know he's going to find a solution to the problem. Okay. Might I add that he did find a solution to the problem? True, Fabian said as he peered more closely at the circuitry he had exposed. Is that? Oh, no, that's fine. Damn. He closed the panel, then opened another one. Of course, he wasn't alone. As I recall, certain former crewmates of mine on Deep Space Nine did a nice job disrupting the gateways. For all of 10 minutes. Yeah, but from what I hear, that was a pretty useful 10 minutes. Helped expose those fake Iconians for the frauds they were. And it was engineered by one Lieutenant Nog. You remember Nog, right, Duff? The kid you were so condescending to on Empok Nor? The one whose plan you wouldn't even listen to? The one who made us look like idiots? Yes, Kieran said in a tight voice. I remember. It should be pointed out that I did apologize and offer him a spot on the team. Actually, it was Captain Gold who offered him a spot on the team. And would you take it if you were treated the way you treated him? Kieran sighed. Is there any way I can win in this conversation? Fabian looked like he was pretending to consider it. No, not really. Just checking. All kidding aside, though, I'm especially glad we didn't find ourselves in the middle of any major wars. I mean, bad enough that the gateway that connected this place to Andor led to that little bit of thievery. What little bit of thievery? Fabian turned to look at Kieran. Duff, we've been on Tellar for a day. All anyone's been talking about are the Andorians who came in and stole the Colandor scrolls. Kieran shrugged. It's best to just tune out Tellarites complaining about Andorians. You'll live longer. Yeah, good point. I was more worried about that nonsense between the Carrion and the Deltans. Not to mention the Marcanians and the Aeron. Who? A couple of former members of the Thelonian Empire. Oh, okay. I don't follow all that post-collapse Thelonian stuff. I tried, but it just got too complicated. I lost track. Is Captain Calhoun still dead? As of this week, he's alive, Kieran said with a grin. Okay, just check. Captain Fabian cut himself off. What is it, Fabe? You're not going to believe this. Believe what? I mean, you're really not going to believe this. I certainly won't if you don't tell me what it is. This is really unbelievable. So I've been led to understand. Okay, you know how the gateway on Tellar started draining power from this generator? Considering we just spent most of the last 24 hours fixing the damage done by that power surge, yes, I do know. Get to the point, Fabe. Well, when that surge hit, it knocked an isolinear rod out of whack. Not much, only about a millimeter or so. So that's why this thing won't work. Yep. This entire piece of 12-ton machinery is dead because an isolinear rod is a millimeter out of alignment. Yep. Kieran hesitated. This is the part where I say I don't believe it, right? It would bring the joke full circle, yes. Sighing, Kieran put his head in his hands. I suppose I walked right into that one. Then he looked at Fabian, who was simply standing there. Fabe? Yeah. All we need to do to fix this is put that rod back into place, right? That's right. So, why haven't you? I was waiting for your order. After all, you are an officer. Second in command of the S.C.E. team. Third in command of the Vinci. An all-around important person. I am but a humble engineer. A mere cog in the mighty wheel of Starfleet. I would never presume to circumvent the chain of command by proceeding without an order from you. Okay, it's official, Kieran thought. We need shore leave, and soon. That damned overhaul at 96 can't come soon enough. Mr. Stevens! He said in a mock formal voice. Yes, Lieutenant Commander Duffy, sir! Fabian said in a like tone. Would you be so kind as to put the isolinear rod back in place? Yes, sir, right away, sir! Fabian saluted sloppily and then reached into the generator. 2 seconds later, the large piece of Tellarite machinery hummed to life. Congratulations, Mr. Duffy, Fabian said. It's a generator. Da Vinci to Duffy. Kieran blinked. That was Captain Gold's voice. He wondered when they came in system relative to when Fabian found the rod, mainly as it would determine where he and Sonny ate on Starbase 96 next month. Go ahead, he said, tapping his comm badge. You two finished down there yet? Just done now, sir. And Commander Gomez and P.A. Blue are in orbit. I know, the Archimedes is docking now. I need you two up here pronto. We just got a distress call from Maeglin. Oh, God, Fabian said. Not the Andrasi again. No, it's actually another gateway problem. And they asked for us specifically. Nothing like gratitude, Kieran said. We just need to tell the Tellarite authorities that their generator's finally up and running, and then Diego can beam us up. Good. I'll let Corsi know we're pulling out as well. That'll just thrill the heck out of her, I'm sure, sir. Chapter 2. Malk had fully expected to live his entire life without seeing a 12-meter tall, 2-meter wide, green, scaly creature with yellow eyes. Then again, he had also fully expected to live his life as a farmer on Maeglin with all the comforts of 24th century living. This, he thought, as he stared up at the 12-meter tall, 2-meter wide, green, scaly creature with yellow eyes walking toward his farm, will teach me to have unrealistic expectations. Things had been bad enough these last few months. Maeglin had been colonized about 100 years earlier by a group of Tellarites who wanted to get back to nature. Malk had always found that bitterly amusing in light of recent events. Maeglin was not part of the Federation, and so when the third straight year of bad crops meant that the colony was in serious trouble, they didn't have an immediate recourse. Some advocated asking the Federation for help, but others were against that. Adding fuel to the fire was the presence of the Andrasi, an alien race of technicians who offered a solution to all their problems for a very cheap price. Ultimately, it came down to a bidding war with Starfleet in the form of one of their vessels full of engineers, the Da Vinci. The Da Vinci offered a method of re-energizing the soil that would take time and mean another difficult year, but with tremendous long-term benefits and no deleterious side effects whatsoever. The Andrasi offered instant gratification, but would not let the authorities, or the Da Vinci crew, examine the specifications, and they were vague about the long-term consequences. Despite the lack of consensus, some Maeglin went ahead and struck a deal with the Andrasi. As a result, they had good soil again. But the equipment used to revitalize the planet's ground also released a duonetic field into the atmosphere. Suddenly, no electronic equipment of any kind could work on the planet. Both Maeglin authorities and the Da Vinci tried to stop the Andrasi, but to no avail. However, the engineers on the Starfleet ship were able to retard the effects of the field, enough so that at least some of the equipment would work. Their crew were regarded as heroes, and they went on their way. Malk, for his part, didn't see them as heroes. If they were real heroes, they'd have stopped the Andrasi in the first place. This all served to explain why Malk could only get his equipment to work about a quarter of the time, and why he'd been reduced to such menial and outmoded tasks as hoeing and weeding and mowing. It did not explain why there was a 12-meter tall, 2-meter wide, green scaly creature with yellow eyes walking toward his farm. Then, about 3 meters from the farm, the creature stopped. Malk's nearest neighbor was named Dav. When the duonetic field first hit, Dov had dug up an old projectile weapon, saying that he at least would be safe. At the time, Malk had thought Dav to be insane. Right now, Malk was wishing Dav was nearby. Malk had a phaser somewhere on the farm, but phasers weren't the most reliable weapons these days. Besides, it would take him several minutes, if not hours, to find the thing, and who knew what the creature would do in the meantime. The creature started making an odd kind of noise and gesturing. Malk didn't understand a word of it. "Go away!" he shouted, knowing how ridiculous it sounded. More noises and gesturing. Again, Malk shouted, "Go away!" Then, for good measure, he added, "Get out of here!" Still, more noises and gesturing. "Damn you, get off my farm!" Malk cried, shaking his fist. Suddenly, the creature screamed so loud that Malk's ears rattled. Then it stomped forward, right into the farm. Within minutes, Malk's farm, his equipment, his possessions, his food, and everything he kept in the structure, which was made out of a plastiform that had withstood various nasty weather conditions with nary a scratch for 3 generations, was shredded. Malk couldn't believe it. His jaw dropped from his snout. The chair his mother had given him, the clothes he had replicated, the food stores for the next week's market, the kitchen, the only sporadically working comm and the old-fashioned radio, either one of which he might have used to call for help. All of it was reduced to rubble by the large green thing in the space of about 5 minutes. And then it stomped off, heading, Malk dimly noted, in the direction of Dav's farm. Maybe it's susceptible to projectile weapons, Malk thought with little hope. If it could tear his tough old farm up, he doubted that Dav's silly antique would have much of an effect. Malk had thought, like most Maeglin, that the day the Andrasi came was the darkest day in Maeglin history. Now he had to wonder if it would have competition for that distinction. To be continued next week. Thank you very much for watching. Please check me out online, DeCandido.net. My blog is at DeCandido.wordpress.com, and if you would please support me at at Patreon.com/KRAD. There's lots of cool stuff on my Patreon. I recently put up a movie review of the 2 Coming to America movies. I did a little roundup of a bunch of TV shows, including Avenue 5, The Newsroom, The Kaminsky Method, Bonding Season 2, and something else. I forget what the other one was. But check it out. It's all there online. I put up cat pictures practically on a daily basis. There's weekly excerpts from my work in progress, my upcoming novella, All the Way House, and my upcoming novel, Feet of Clay. And I also, there was also just a vignette this last week featuring Cassie Zukov, Weirdness Magnet. It's all there. It's all awesome. You should check it out. Please subscribe to this channel also, so you'll know when things are coming again. And please stay safe. Thank you ever so much. Take care.